Hello, my name is Renz Valenzuela, and I'm gonna be reporting the last part of the SLM2 topic, ethics in business world. Learning objectives in this topic is by the end of this lesson, students should be able to explain the importance of ethics in the business and IT world, identify the common forms of employee misconduct, recognize key ethical issues in information technology, and are IT workers considered as professionals. Discuss ethical relationships between IT workers, employers, clients, suppliers, and other professionals in and society. Differentiate between subjectivism, objectivism, and relativism in ethics. So, what is the ethics in the business world? As we all know, ethics is the belief of the right and wrong behaviors in a society. So it is what we consider the right and wrong behavior in a society. So ethics has become a top business priority agenda because of the risk associated with inappropriate behavior have increased. So both in their likelihood and in their potential impact. So it means that the inappropriate behavior in the business world has increased, and its risk in their likelihood of their potential negative impact in the society. In the past decade alone, we have watched the collapse and or build out of financial institutions. So why have they build out or collapse? It is for the reasons of unwise or unethical decision making, approval of bad mortgages, loans, or line of credit to unqualified individuals and or organizations. Um, we have a few examples of that. We have Bank of America, the Bank of America government bailout. So the Bank of America was bailed out by the government uh, because they made bad financial decisions in their mortgage, and then just so they could be stabilized because they bought two institutions. One was the Countrywide Financial. The second example is we have Citigroup government bailout. So the Citigroup government bailout was, I think, for $45 billion. They were bailed out by the government too. And then for the next one, we have the Countrywide Financial, who was forced to sell to Bank of America because just so they could prevent bankruptcy. So all of this that I'm explaining are the examples of are connected to the 2008 financial global crisis. So this is where a lot of financial institutions have either collapsed or was bailed out by their government. So the fourth one we have is Freddie Mac government bailout. So they were bailed out by the government through the federal conservatorship. So the federal conservatorship is where the government temporarily take care of the institution or the business while they are having trouble with they're having trouble stabilizing within the society. The same goes for the Fannie Mae bailout. They also were bailed out through the federal conservatorship. And then the next one we have is Lehman Brothers. So the Lehman Brothers was actually collapsed due to bad mortgages and loans. So they collapsed because the government couldn't save them through a bailout. The last one we have is American International Group, so AIG bailout. So they were bailed out for around $180 billion by the government. So these are all examples of the collapse or bailouts of financial institutions because of bad decision makings or unethical or unwise decision makings through bad mortgages, loans, and credits to unqualified individuals. Not only that, we have also seen numerous corporate workers and senior managers who were sentenced to prison for their unethical behaviors. A great example of this is we have Bernard Madoff. So he was a former uh, finance broker or investment broker who built his clients out of an estimated of $65 billion. So he ran a massive Ponzi scheme. So it is a type of investment scam where money from new investors are used to pay returns to previous investors. So it creates an illusion of a profitable business, but clearly it was not. So the total losses were estimated to be about $65 billion, but the client's losses were closer to 15 or 17 to $20 billion. So clearly, unethical decision making has led to a lot of negative consequences that have had a great impact in a great global impact. So let's move on to a couple of trends that causes the that causes the unethical behaviors. So first we have is greater globalization. So businesses today often operate in many different countries around the world. Because of this, companies and employees now deal with many different cultures, laws, and moral standards. So globalization means that it makes it harder for to apply one universal code of ethics um to one company since or to many different countries since everyone has different laws or ethical um or what they deem to be ethically right or ethically wrong. So the So let's say that one is may be considered ethically in one country and then might not be viewed in the same way in another. So that's exactly what greater globalizations means. An example of this is the a US company might move to a its factory to a developing country to reduce cost. So in that country, labor laws may be weaker, or workers may have low wages, long hours, or unsafe working conditions. That would not be acceptable if the company was located in the USA. But they relocated to a different country that is developing. So even though the company is following local laws, people might still question that whether it's ethical to take advantage of lower standards in another country. So the main point of greater globalization is that it creates ethical challenges for people. So it's not always clear which standards a company should follow when operating across countries with different values and regulations. The next one we have is pressure per profits. So the economy today is uncertain and competitive. So many organizations find it hard to keep earning enough money or profit. So some companies may be tempted to act unethically to make their financial situation look better than it already is. So a great example of this is the Satam Computer Services. So it is a large company in India where its chairman lied that the company finances by saying that they had over a billion more in assets than they actually did. So of course they did not actually have a billion assets. So it was a lie just so they could gain more investors and more just so they could get more investors. So however, when the truth came out, it became India's biggest corporate scandal. So the government had to protect the jobs of the 53,000 employees that worked in the Satam Computer Services. So since it's reputation and stability were badly damaged due to their scandal of the chairman lying about their assets. So the main idea here is that the financial pressure can push companies to commit fraud or dishonest acts just so that they could gain more profits, but or maybe survive. But such unethical actions can lead to serious legal and financial reputational consequences. So just like here in Satam Computer Services. The last one is we have weak enforcement for ethical standards. So even if a company has a code of ethics or clear rules for honesty and responsible behavior, those rules doesn't mean anything unless they are strictly enforced, or meaning that it doesn't matter if a company has rules or anything that goes in ethical behaviors that the society considers, if they are not enforced, or yeah, if they are not enforced. An example of this is the Enron accounting scandal. So in the 2000, Enron employed over 22,000 people and had an annual revenue of $101 billion. So it was a successful accounting company. But it all went down when it was discovered that Enron had lied to about its financial health by hiding their debts, losses, fake partnerships, and partnerships that it secretly controlled. So when the truth came out, Enron's stock price collapsed. So originally, its stock price was $90 per share, now turned to less than $1, and the company went bankrupt. So it's normal for leaders or many powerful people to become greedy or seek out more, gain more resources and other maybe positions and more profits. So it's sometimes they think that it's okay to act this way or make certain actions even though they're unethical because they can. So this is a great example of the Bathsheba syndrome. So it is moral corruption among people in power. So it was named after the biblical story of the King David. In the story, David became corrupted by his power. He saw Bathsheba, the wife of one of his soldiers, that became obsessed with her, and abused his power by sending her husband to die in battle so that he could marry her. So essentially, it means that sometimes the people in power are gets corrupt due to their greed or because they want to make more money, profits, get more investments. But of course, low-level employees can also have unethical or ethical dilemmas, not only the higher ones. So here is we have the most common forms of employee misconducts. The first one we have is misuse of company. Or actually, let me explain first. This is the table of the most common forms of employee misconduct. We have the type of employee misconduct, and then the percentage of the surveyed employees observing these behaviors. So we have misuse of company time. So it is doing personal things or wasting time during work hours instead of actually working, which stands at 33%. Next one is abusive behavior. So abusive behavior is treating coworkers poorly through bullying, yelling, or harassment. So it stands at a 21%. Lying to employees is giving false information or misleading staff within the company. That is 20%. Company resource abuse. So here is using company properties like we have the printers, cars, or money for personal use. That stands at a 20%. So next one we have is violating company internet policies. So that stands at a 16%. It means using the internet for non-work related activities, so like social medias or illegal downloads or websites. Next one we have is discrimination, which stands at 15%. So discrimination is treating someone unfairly because of how they look, their race, their gender, religion, or maybe age, and other personal traits. The next one we have is conflict of interest. So conflict of interest it stands at a 15% as well. It's making decisions at work that personally benefits you instead of the company. So that is conflict of interest. The next one we have is inappropriate social networking. So that stands at 14%. Means posting or sharing unprofessional or harmful content about the company or coworkers. The next one is health or safety violations. It stands at 13%. It means ignoring safety rules or creating dangerous situations at work that may pose a risk to other coworkers. The next one we have is lying to outside stakeholders. It stands at 12%. Means giving false information to customers, partners, or investors. That is lying to them. You're giving them wrong information about something like investments or anything like that. Um, Second to the last, we have stealing at 12%. It means, of course, taking something that isn't yours, or it can be company property, money, or other coworkers' belongings without their permission. That is stealing. And then the last one we have is falsifying time reports or hours worked. So that stands at a 12%. Means you're lying about the work hours or attendance just to get paid for the time that you did not actually work for. So ethics in information technology. So because of the rapid growth of internet and the ability of modern technology to collect and store large amounts of personal data, there is now greater risk that technology will be misused in unethical ways. So a great example of this is, or not exactly an example, is that because of the rapid growth of technology, so it has it has opened a wide area for unethical and ethical behavior. So especially if since in in the real world, so of course there are risks of unethical behaviors, but since there has been a new world that has opened in the internet, so the risk is greater. So since technology can be misused in a lot of ways. Examples that may raise public concerns about the ethical use of information technology is we have monitoring employee emails versus privacy. So here is companies employees track what employees do online to protect company assets. So but this raises privacy concerns for workers. Next one we have is piracy and copyright violations. So essentially for music and movies. So as we all know, a lot of us uses pirate websites or pirated movies and music because we don't want to pay for those. So of course it is illegal and people get copyrighted content for free, which violates the law and causes big financial losses to creator and copyright owners. Next one we have is spam emails and unsolicited marketing. So here is a lot of organizations send massive amounts of unwanted emails to advertise their products because it's cheap. So even though it's annoying and intrusive, of course everyone has received spam emails through their Google accounts or their Gmail. So that's where it raises concerns, especially when a, a lot of organization can just email you without your consent. Next one is hacking, data theft, and identity fraud. So, cyber criminals break into companies' databases and steal personal data and uses it to commit identity theft and or fraud. Next one we have is plagiarism and misuse of online content. So, sometimes students copy online content without permission or proper citation, claiming it as their work. So, let's say, for example, is there was a student in a school who um, submitted a thesis that they claimed that it was theirs, but clearly it had no citations or any proper evidence that um, prove that it was originally theirs. And sometimes thesis can have or it can be traced to their original owners. So last one we have is cookies and spyware tracking user behaviors. So here is sometimes when we visit websites or stores, let's say an e-commerce store. So it's e-commerce store. So sometimes websites secretly store data tracking tools on users' devices to monitor what they do online or often without their clear consent. So, 'di ba? Or sometimes when we talk to our friends through social medias. We talk about products or things that we want to buy. Suddenly we get ads about those specific items. So that's exactly what website installing cookies and spyware to our devices or our websites. So are IT workers professionals? So many people in the working business or technology like marketing analysts, financial consultants, software engineers, or app developers have specialized training skills. So of course, they s- they because of this, so since they know that they have advanced and specialized skills, they consider themselves as professionals in their fields. And however, from a legal standpoint, not all IT workers are officially considered as professionals. So why is that? So according to the United States code from a legal perspective is that IT workers are not considered as professionals because they are not licensed by the state or federal government. So it means that the United States codes defines a professional as someone who is advanced in knowledge of a specific field. So it is usually given through a long and specialized education. And whose profession is licensed or regulated by the government. So since IT workers are not um, regulated or they don't have a license regulated by the government, they are not considered as professional by the United States Code. So since most IT workers are not licensed, so that means that legally they don't meet the official definition of a professional. So even if they have a high level technical skills, so let's say that they can make applications that have great graphics or games that are so advanced, websites, maybe even other other jobs or other work is they would still not be considered as professionals. So this distinction is important, for example. So, in malpractice lawsuit, as courts have ruled that IT workers are not liable for malpractice because they don't meet the legal definition of a professional. So, an example of this is if a doctor, for example, if a doctor makes a serious mistake and they can be sued for malpractice or medical malpractice because they are licensed professional. But if an IT worker makes an error in a system or in a software and causes data loss, they cannot be sued for malpractice because since the law states that they aren't professionals. So basically, the main idea here is that even though IT workers have advanced skills and educations, they are not legally binded or recognized as professionals because they lack the formal licensing, and this affects the how the law treats their responsibility and accountability. So it causes mistakes or negligence since they cannot be sued for malpractice, or they cannot be held accountable for any malpractice of their work. So professional relationships that must be managed. IT workers typically become involved in many different relationships. So here are examples based on this table is IT workers has a relationship between employers, clients, suppliers, and other professionals, IT users, and the society. So we're gonna talk about different types of relationships of an IT worker, how an IT worker should act, or how they behave professionally, everything. So relationship between IT workers and employers. So we're gonna go with this one first. IT workers and employers have a critical, multifaceted relationship that requires ongoing effort by both parties to keep it strong. So it means that the IT workers and an employer have a complicated relationship. So it's important, and it is complex. So it involves many expectation, responsibilities, agreements, and from both sides so that they can maintain a good relationship. So before an IT worker gets hired, so they're gonna have basic employment agreements. So we have job title, duties, work hours, location, salary, benefits, vacation time, company policy, rules about using company policies, properties like computer networks. So these are usually written in contracts or company document like the policy manual or code of conduct. Next one we have is work related and legal boundaries. So over time, other issues may arise from the IT workers and employers. So, like whether an employee can leave early from work flexible hours, and also the law protects employees from being forced to do anything illegal. So, anything that can be like used to do bad things, it protects the employees. So the employers cannot make them do anything that is illegal or against the law. The next one is the role of the IT worker and are established based on the nature of the work and project. So what does that mean? So it means that for IT workers specifically, job expectations may include the programming language, the amount of documentations, the level of software testing, so things like that. So those are the role of IT workers established based on their nature or project. So an example of these relationship between IT workers and employers is we have the Zynga case. So Zynga is a gaming company famous for games like Farmville, Cityville, which had an issue with one of its managers that left for a rival company, Kixeye. So the company claimed that the employee stole confidential files, including the financial projection, marketing plans, and game designs. So these were considered trade secrets by the Zynga company. So of course, it was their trade secrets for their games, and it is very valuable to them. So this is private information that gives a company a competitive edge from other competitors. So what they did is that they took this they took legal action from stopping the former employee or manager from using or sharing the stolen data. So, the lesson here is that protecting the company secret is a serious ethical and legal issue in the IT field. So, if you are an IT worker, you should have the ethical and legal act to protect the data and assets of a company that you worked, or any resources data that you've seen or worked with. So employees must not take or misuse any confidential data when leaving a company. So you should be honorable when you're leaving a company. Next one we have is whistleblowing. So it is an effort by an employee to attract attention to a negligent, illegal, or unethical, abusive, or dangerous act by a company that threatens the public interest. So that whistleblowing is sort of like you're snitching the unethical behavior that your company does or do. So an example of the whistleblowing is the Infosys case. So, an India-based outsourcing company faced a whistleblower lawsuit from a U.S. consultant. So, according to him, is the Infosys was misusing B1 visas meant for short-term visits. So, to employ workers full-time in the U.S. So, they avoided paying proper wages and not withholding taxes required by the law. So the Infosys case is that the employee exposed the Infosys company's wrongdoing. So he said that the after what he did is that the Infosys retaliated by reducing his bonuses, giving him no meaningful work, and harassing him. So the lesson here is that when it comes to whistleblowers, is that they play an important role in the ethical role of exposing the wrongdoings of of companies or organizations, but they often face personal and professional risk of this. So really depends on the person's ethical moral standing. So if they want to be a whistleblower and tell the world about the wrongdoing of the company that they have worked in. So the overall main idea about relationship between IT workers and employers is that it emphasizes that the relationship must be built on trust, fairness, and ethics. So employers should protect workers' rights and follow the law. Employees should be honest and loyal and respect company's policy. So both sides technically have to act ethically, especially regarding confidentiality. So as we talked about in the game earlier, where the manager left, so you should have you should have to protect the confidentiality of the company that you worked with. You should be honest with any illegal doings of or unethical doings of companies and reporting their wrongdoing. So basically, you just have to maintain a healthy and lawful workplace. Relationship between IT workers and clients. So, IT workers provide services to clients. Sometimes those clients are coworkers. In some cases, it is outsiders from other organizations or company. So, what exactly do they provide? Sometimes they provide services, sometimes they provide technology related products. So, that's what the IT workers do. So, the relationship between IT workers and clients, everything should be written in contract. So everything is usually written in contract. So it explains what they'll do, how much the product will cost, responsibility from each side, and then schedule deadlines for the service or the product. Um, Although IT workers usually know more about technologies, but each party should cooperate and communicate clearly for this to proceed properly. So the next one we have is shared responsibilities and trust. So this relationship should be built on mutual trust between both sides. So the IT workers and the clients. So the client should trust the IT worker to be honest and competent and act in their of interest. The IT worker should trust the client and open and be truthful about the being needing to provide information so that they can make responsible decisions based on the worker's advice. So, because decision making is shared, both the IT worker and client must act responsibly to ensure the success of the project or the whatever they are working on. Next one is the ethical issue here. So conflict of interest. So the conflict of interest between the IT workers or the IT firms are sometimes are self-interest and the interest of the client. So this happens when the IT worker recommends their own products or services or those of a partner or affiliated company instead of suggesting what's best for the client. So sometimes personal interests get in the way of their work. So instead of actually suggesting what's best for the clients, the best solution or the best products that they need or services, they sometimes feel the need to um, make it or suggest their own products or services to the clients, or even though it might jeopardize the what's best for the client. An example of this is the an IT consultant firm. So they evaluate IT strategy. So after reviewing, the consultant gives a bad report about what I know they give a bad report of a company, and then they recommend about their own products or tools and services to fix the problem. So this situation makes the people doubt the consultant or the IT worker honesty. So they aren't being honest about their um yeah, they're not being honest. They're letting their personal interests get the better of them. So instead of actually trying to make a the client trying to satisfy the need of the client. So maybe the client may think that they're just after the money. They don't really care about what they actually need or what the clients need. Uh, Next one is we have fraud. So fraud is the crime of obtaining goods and services or property through deception or trickery. So basically, you're trying to obtain goods and properties, sometimes even money, just so that you could, yeah, for your own selfish desires. So you're tricking them, you're using deceptions so that they would agree to your demands or to your what you want. So yeah. To prove fraud in court, prosecutors must show that the wrongdoer made a false presentation of a material fact. Secondly, the wrongdoer intended to deceive the innocent party. So basically, the one who is guilty is or the wrongdoer is be you need to prove that they intend to deceive you. Then the innocent party must the innocent party justifiably relied on the misrepresentation. And then last one is the innocent party was injured or they have there was a harm that was caused because of the wrongdoer. So next one we have is misrepresentation. So misrepresentation is the misstatement or incomplete statement of a material fact. So it means that you are lying or giving incomplete or false information that causes someone to make a decision like signing a contract, buying a product. So you're technically not you're technically selling a product that is misrepresented the wrong way. So for instance is we have a great example of this. So a great example of this misrepresentation is the Siri case. So the Apple sold there was an advertisement about the new iPhone 4S, and a man bought the iPhone 4S, and after so the advertisement was shown that Siri or so there was a new software or feature on the iPhone 4S that there was an AI involved, and Siri was accurate Siri was shown as accurate and helpful, but in reality, it had many it had many what do you call it? It had many um failures, or it didn't meet the expectations of the buyers. So the man sued Apple for intentional misrepresentation of their new iPhone 4S. So the Apple misled customer by exaggerating Siri's abilities. So the man who actually sued the Apple was he used the phone to get direction, but Siri gave him the wrong directions. So next one we have is breach of contract. So breach of contract occurs when one party fails to meet the terms of contract. So we have two parties that are agreed on a contract. So if the breach of contract occurs when uh, a person in the party fails to meet the standard or the requirement of the contract. So if a part of the agreement is broken, it's serious. It's called oh, and material breach is the meaning. It means that the very purpose of the contract is destroyed. So in the material breach naman is that if the broken part of the agreement is serious, it's called the material breach, meaning the very purpose of your contract is destroyed. So the contract of the two parties were destroyed. So when a material breach occurs, the other party can cancel the contract, demand refunds and compensation, or stop performing their part. Secondly, they can continue the contract but sue damages to the other party that causes the breach. So determining whether the breach is minor or material depends on the specific situation. So it is decided case by case. So not every case works with one another, or not one is similar to another. So the main takeaway here is that relationship between IT workers and clients is built on trust and professionalism. So you should be professional about what you sell, what you do, and you should avoid conflicts of interest and dishonesty. So you should do what's best for the client, and you shouldn't be dishonest about it. So you should always act in the client's best of interest. So clients must be helpful, truthful, and cooperative, respectful of the IT workers' expertise. So both sides should follow the ethical principle of the contract terms. So you should follow your contract. You shouldn't breach it. You should follow it letter by letter, word for word. So transparency is very important here. Relationship between IT workers and suppliers. So, yun lang. Okay, okay. There we go. So, IT workers often work with hardware, software, services, and service suppliers. So, building good relationship with suppliers help ensure effective communication and sharing of ideas, which can lead to innovative and cost-effective solutions. So, it says that we should build good relationship with our suppliers. We should ensure effective communication and sharing of ideas so that we can be so we it can lead to innovative and cost-effective solutions. So IT workers should be fair and reasonable. For example, that is demanding that a supplier deliver an equipment tomorrow when the deadline should be a week. So that's unreasonable, and that it harms the relationship that you have built or trying to build with the suppliers. So as IT workers, you should be fair and reasonable with your suppliers. Bribery. Bribery is the act of providing money and property or favor to someone in a business or government in order to gain advantage, or have their business. Um, an example of this is sometimes suppliers try to influence an IT worker unethically or offer gifts, favors, or special treatment. So, as IT workers, we shouldn't accept bribes even if they seem harmless. So, because even though they seem harmless at first or at face value, it can still cause harm or for other people or to whoever it is involved. Kickbacks or payoffs. So the person who bribes is committing a crime, and the person who accepts the bribes is committing a crime. So technically, it means that there's a kickback. So both of you are guilty of a crime. It doesn't matter who bribed who accepted who. Both of you are guilty. So since one accepted, one gave, both of you are getting consequences. So that is kickback or payoffs. So legal consequences here is that bribery is illegal and some state laws exist to prevent it. Contracts obtained through bribery can be invalidated. So if there are contracts, so in a crime of bribery, it can be invalidated. So there's not going to be any solid protection from a contract if there are bribery involved. And however, despite all of this invalidation of documents or contracts, state laws, criminal convictions for bribery are rare. So not much people or um, people in power or who have positions, they rarely get convicted of bribery. Relationship between IT workers and other professionals. So professional often feels a degree of loyalty to the other members of their profession. As a result, they are often quick to help with each other obtain new position, but slow to criticize each other in public. So it says that professional feels a certain degree of loyalty to another member of their profession. Since both of them are on the same profession, so they sort of feel a sense of um, loyalty. So as a result, they are quick to help each other obtain new positions, and they are slow to criticize each other because it reflects on their profession. So they don't criticize each other much since both of them so for instance, if you criticize someone of your own profession, it can also affect your own reputation. So the way a profession is perceived affects all of its members. So teachers are generally seen as trustworthy while politicians are not. Why? Because teachers, they are seen as our second parents. They teach students and they basically teach the future of the society. So that is why they are perceived as trustworthy, while politicians are not regarding their um, issues and scandals. So the way our professions are perceived by others depends on our reputation. So if our reputation is good, like the teachers, then we would be seen as trustworthy. Unlike the politicians who have many scandals and issues. So because of this, professionals must follow their field's code of conduct to maintain their reputation. And sometimes experienced professional can also act as mentors, so they can teach and guide the newcomers to their profession, so they can help maintain an ethically high standards. So someone who is experienced in their profession can teach someone who is just a newcomer. So that's how it works. Next one we have is Resume inflation. So, resume inflation is when someone lies or exaggerates their skills or expertise to get a job. So, while it may help in the short term, for let's say you landed a job because you lied about your resume, you can damage your career and your profession's reputation. Well, because you lied about it, and in the long run, um when you lie about your profession or your skills, in the long run, it's gonna impact you, or it's gonna have consequences. For example, we have Scott Thompson. So he was hired by Yahoo as a CEO in 2012. So 4 months later, after he was hired, he resigned because it was revealed that he falsely claimed a degree. So he lied about his resume. He lied that he had a degree in computer science, which he did not. So that's why he resigned or he was fired. Next one is sharing corporate information inappropriately. So IT workers may have access to corporate databases or private confidential information about employees, customers, suppliers, new product plans, promotion, budgets, and so on. So sharing corporate information inappropriately is an ethical issue because you shouldn't misuse your confidential information. If you have access to sensitive data about employees and whatnot, then you shouldn't sell this information because it is unethical. So people who shouldn't know these kinds of information, they don't need to know that. You don't need to sell it to others or external parties. So even just casual or information sharing during work conversation, it can violate the legal trust and boundaries of the company. So the main idea in the relationship between other professions is that you should be loyal, honest, and you should have a proper ethical behavior. You should respect confidential information, and you should adhere to professional standards and mentoring responsibilities. So, if you fail to act ethically, like lying on your resume or sharing confidential information or corporate data, then it can harm both parties or both individuals and the profession as a whole. So, it can be perceived as your profession cannot be trusted. Relationships between IT workers and IT users. So IT users refers to the term to differentiate them from IT workers. So they are the people who uses hardware or software products that the IT workers develop. They are different from IT workers who develop these products or software and install, maintain, or support these products. Now, IT workers have really important responsibilities to IT users and to themselves. So, it is to understand the IT users' needs and capabilities. So, it's important for them to know what the IT user wants, what they need, and then what capabilities they can have, and then to deliver products and services that meet those needs as effectively as possible. So IT workers need to be able to meet the needs of the IT users effectively, and then while also respecting their budget and then time constraint. So time constraint refers to the deadline of which they have agreed upon. Now, it is important to promote ethical behavior in the for IT workers and the IT users. So IT workers have a key responsibility to establish this environment which promotes ethical behavior and then rejects the unethical behavior. So it should support the ethical behavior by users. Which these are discouraging software piracy. So as IT workers, they should discourage piracy so to the IT users that they sell hardware or software too. It is important to know that software piracy is illegal and it shouldn't be promoted. Next one we have is preventing inappropriate use of corporate computing resources. So if what you're doing is not um tied to or connected to what your job or job description is, you should prevent the inappropriate use of corporate computing resources. It should only be used for job related activities. The next one is improper sharing of information. So as we all know, as IT workers, we tend to get access to certain information or data that we shouldn't tell external we shouldn't tell external parties. So it is improper to share information that should only be told to people who have access to it. So it is improper to share information. So, relationship between IT workers and society. So, as we all know, IT workers has a significant contribution and relationship to our society in terms of the products that we sell, the services that we do, a lot of the things that IT workers nowadays or in this society have a really significant contribution to society and relationship. And so, regulatory laws exist to ensure that the safety standard for the products and services that we IT or IT workers sell and do protect to be able to protect the public from them. So, however, these laws cannot prevent every possible risk. There are still other leeway or there are holes in the laws that some IT workers or some people abuse or take advantage of. So, the society's expectation for us IT workers is that we are able to provide benefits. So, the products that we sell and the services that we sell are benefits to society as a whole, or ensures that we can have a sort of contribution or so that we can help them better and then avoid causing harm. So the society expects IT workers to avoid causing harms to them or to the society as a whole. So one main approach for this is we IT as IT workers, it is important to maintain professionalism. So professionalism is to ensure that you have the proper ethical behavior and then you have the proper um yeah, basically you have the proper ethical behavior to maintain your reputation, to be able to make products and services the right way. So you need to be able to be professional about your profession. So an example of this is a system analyst designs a computer controlled system for a chemical plant. So if the system fails and has error, it could endanger the workers or nearby residents. So this is a great example of the things that the work that we do that can cause harm to our society. So it is important that we avoid causing harm. We ensure that we are taking safety standards so that we are able to where we our work are able to function properly. So our products and services that we sell. So professional guidance. Oh, this is an important part as well. So there's no single organization that oversees all IT workers for public protection. There's no single organization that does that. So, however, several professional organizations provide codes of ethics to guide IT workers in making ethical decisions and protecting our society. So, although there's no single organization that oversees all IT workers worldwide or in a country, but there are still several organizations that provide ethic code of ethics so that the IT workers are so that they can make sure that IT workers make ethical decisions for their line of work. So, for instance, making hardware or softwares. So, it's all of this is to ensure that we are able to protect and cause no harm to our society. So, we finished with discussing the relationship of IT workers and how it should be managed. And then let's move on to understanding subjectivism, objectivism, and relativism. So this is regarding morality. So moral subjectivism. So it is morality is not dependent on society but only on the individual. So basically, it means that morality doesn't depend on what the society considered as morally right. So what everyone considers as right, that is not that doesn't work here in moral subjectivism. So anything is okay as long as one lives by their own principle. So if a person, lives by my own beliefs and principle by what I consider right and what I consider wrong or what I believe, then it's okay. So it makes concept of morality useless since one person's principle versus another's, there's no argument since both are different and they believe in their own whatever they believe in, so their own principle and beliefs. And however, there are some good points and bad points in moral subjectivism. The first one we have is it reflects the subjective elements of morality. So it shows that morality is closely tied to an individual's emotion and judgment. So it means that morality depends on one's own emotions and judgment, not by society. And it reflects the evaluative elements of moral statements. So moral statements like lying is wrong expresses judgment. So unlike factual statements like cats have a fur. So it evaluates elements of moral statement. So moral moral statements like lying is wrong, it expresses the judgment, and then like factual statements like cats have fur. So yeah, they have their own judgment, so that's what I mean. And then shows that moral judgments communicate disapproval and approval. So in subjectivism, it highlights that moral statement often convey how we feel about action, so whether we approve or disapprove about a certain action or anything. And then it may clarify what people are arguing about. So it helps people see that some moral disputes are about personal preference and not objective truth. So it can clarify us. So if I a person, so another one's personal preference, that does not mean it is the objective truth. So it doesn't mean that the society view it as the actual truth. So it just means that it is their personal preference. Next one we have is it reflects the persuasive intentions behind ethical discussion. So recognizes that ethical discussions often aim to convince others to adopt one point of view, but not prove an absolute truth. So um, it means that ethical discussions it just means that one person is trying to convince the other to adapt to their viewpoints or to their beliefs. Um it doesn't make it the absolute truth. It just means that they're trying to convince the other person about what they believe. So let's move on to the bad points. So the bad points is if I approve of something, then it must be good. Since we're talking about moral subjectivism, so it's centered around the person. So if morality depends solely on individuals approval, then statements like lying is good are true just because the speaker believes it. So this means that if the speaker considers lying is good, then it must be true since he believes that it is true. So if he approves of something, then it must be good. Next one we have is moral statements. So moral statements seems more than statements about feelings. So normally when someone says murder is wrong, we understand that they mean it. It objectively means wrong, not just what they personally that not just that they personally dislike it. So this means that moral statements seems more about feelings. and not the objective truth. It just means that um as a when an individual say that murder is wrong, usually we understand that it is objectively wrong. But here in moral subjectivism, yeah, it means that they dislike it. So it's more about what they feel rather than what is objectively right. So last one we have is how can we blame people if moral truths are always subjective? So if moral truths are always subjective, then it's hard to justify punishing people for wrongdoing. One possible workaround is punishment can be based on society's majority disapproval rather than objective moral truth. So this means that it's hard to blame people if moral truths are always subjective. So it's hard to convict them of something that they did wrong because it's subjective. So what if they believe that it is right, and what if you believe that it is wrong? Since morality here is subjective and only focused on one person. So it's hard to justify and punish people for their wrongdoing. So the workaround here is to punish someone's wrongdoing based on what the majority thinks, or rather objective moral truth, or what they think is wrong and right. So let's move on to the opposite of moral subjectivism, which is moral objectivism. So it is the belief that some moral principles are universally true and apply to all people regardless of culture and opinions. So it means that unlike moral subjectivism, where it is based on an individual's belief or preferences, in moral objectivism, it is the belief that some moral principle should be universally true and should apply to everyone, or everyone should adhere to it, regardless of their opinion or their culture. So it promotes rational self-interest and virtues like honesty, justice, independence, and responsibility. Moral objectivism values reason and evidence over personal belief or blind faith. So unlike moral subjectivism, where it is based on personal belief and blind faith, here it is based on reason and evidence. So if there are reason or evidence for a certain belief, then it can be agreed upon by everyone. So it says that moral principles are valid rules of action that should generally be adhered to, like I said earlier, but may be overridden by other moral principles in cases of conflict. So it's not absolute. Moral objectivism is not absolute. In case of conflict from other moral values or principles, it can be overridden. So let's move on to some set of moral principle that everyone should know or follow. So this set of moral principle are: do not kill people, innocent people. So of course, as humans, we shouldn't kill innocent people, and everyone should know that we shouldn't kill them. Next one we have: do not torture for fun. For the next one, do not cheat or steal. Keep promises and contracts. Tell the truth and treat others fairly and with justice. Next one we have is respects other freedom. Others is freedom. Second to the last we have help others when possible if it costs a little. And the lastly we have do good and avoid unnecessary harm. So these are the set of principles that um everyone should adhere to. So this is a basic or standard set of principle that everyone in our society should adhere to. So that's moral objectivism. Okay. For the last one, we have ethical relativism. So ethical relativism means that there are no universal moral truths that apply to everyone. So unlike Moral objectivism, where there are universal truth or a set of universal truth that should apply to everyone or everyone should adhere to. In ethical relativism, it it doesn't follow the universal moral truth concept. So here is what is right and wrong depends on each culture or individual belief. So it is not a fixed standard, but rather all are valid relative to culture. So it means that morality depends on a single person's own culture. So it's different for everyone, and it's all valid among different a range of different kinds of culture. So ethical relativism rests in two premises. We have cultural relativism. So in cultural relativism, it means that different cultures have different moral rules and practices. So what's moral in one society might be immoral in another. So in cultural relativism is that um, cultures are different or the moral rules and practices are different for different kinds of cultures. And one right can be might be different from another culture. The next one we have is dependency thesis. So a moral rule is valid only because a culture accepts it. There's no independent or universal basis for morality. So for the dependency thesis, it means that a moral rule is only valid because a certain culture or a culture accepts it. So if a culture doesn't accept a certain moral rule, then it is not considered as a valid moral rule. So there is no independent or universally basis for morality. It all depends on a culture. So the consequences of ethical relativism is that you cannot criticize another culture's moral because every culture's ethics are equally valid. So since ethical relativism considers every moral I know it considers every morality as valid, then you are not eligible to criticize another culture's moral since everything is considered as right. So moral reformers. So people who challenge traditions are wrong because they go against their society's accepted rules. So ethical relativism views that people who goes against the traditions that cultures have accepted are called moral reformers, and they are wrong. They're considered wrong because they go against the society's accepted rules or what a culture considers as right. Civil disobedience is also wrong if society supports the law being broken. So, if you're a person living in a society and you are being disobedient about their laws and rules, and a if the society accepts supports the law that is being broken, then it is wrong. So, for the second to last, we have laws lose universal basis since different groups may not agree on what is right. So, it means that laws are only applies to certain cultures because it lost in ethical relativism. It lost its universal basis. So it says, as we discussed earlier, is what's right for another culture might be wrong for another. So there will be no universal basis for laws since everything is going to be different for everyone. Last one we have is creates conflict when a person belongs to multiple groups with different moral code. So it means that in ethical relativism, when someone in different kinds of groups have different kinds of beliefs or certain rules that they follow, it creates conflict. Since when a person belongs to multiple groups, um, it creates different kinds of moral code that they should follow or shouldn't. And it creates conflict in their mind or in what they believe because different groups may be believing in something different and another believing in something else. So it creates conflict. Um, let's move on to problems with ethical relativism. So some moral universal seems to exist, like avoiding murder, caring for children, and fairness. So although it believes in ethical relativism, that it believes that that everything is valid and there's no universal morality, since it depends on each cultures or different kinds of cultures. They seem to have a something that that all of them follow, which is avoiding murder, caring for children. These are just examples, and fairness. So for the next one we have is, just because a belief exists in a culture doesn't mean it's right or justifies. So that's the problem with ethical relativism. So just because a culture believes it's right, it doesn't mean that it is right, or it is justified. So that's the problem with them. Is that something that maybe something that they believe are just absolutely wrong. So it doesn't mean that it should be right just because they believe it. So psycho the third one we have is, if morality depends on culture, we can never say a society is wrong, even about harmful practices like slavery or oppression. So a con or a problem with ethical relativism is that if morality depends on culture, then we cannot go against their culture or their belief. We can never say that it is wrong. So even if they practice harmful, even if practice harmful stuff like slavery and oppression, we can never say it is wrong or go against it. So last one is, we have, there's no impartial standard for judging moral differences, but we can still reason about which moral system better promotes human good. So, another problem with ethical relativism is, although there's no standard or universal code for morality in judging our differences between cultures, we can still find reason, or we can still find justification about which moral system better promotes human good. So, we can follow with what culture or which cultures promotes better human good or kindness. So here are my references for this presentation about ethics in business. And then that's it. Thank you for listening to my presentation about the things that we tackle about ethics in the business world, about most common kinds of employee misconduct, about ethics in information technology, RIT professional, RIT considered as professionals, and then the relationship between IT workers and employees, clients, suppliers, other professionals, IT user society, and then last one is understanding subjectivism, objectivism, and relativism. Thank you so much.